Our next candidate is Dr. Michele Edwards. Dr. Edwards serves as a career and technical education director for a neighboring school district, and she has more than 24 years in education. And she should be appearing any second now.
Sorry. Kind of sprung it on all y'all. Everybody was having a good time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, are you
Look
good?
at you, Dr. Boyd.
Hello, Dr. Edwards.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Daniel Boyd. I'm the interim superintendent.
Hello, Dr. Boyd. Nice to meet you.
I'm Kim Crockett. I'm serving as chair.
Billy Holland, District 4.
Tracy Sturchick, District 1.
Jamie Jackson, District 3.
Dr. Edwards, I'm Kyle Glover, District 5.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice.
Nice to meet
Before we
you.
begin, can I bring these up for you all?
Sure.
To be able to kind of reference while we're talking today.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, so we are each going to ask you 2 questions, and we will all be, thank you. Each take turns, so I have the privilege of giving the first 2 questions. Our first one is, would you please give us a brief summary of your professional experiences, your personal beliefs on public education, and why you are interested in being the next superintendent of Watauga County?
Sure. I grew up in rural North Alabama, near Decatur and Hartselle area. And so my background was from there. I went to Troy University, where I was a college athlete, and picked up a major in English and health, and went into education in 1997 in Coffee County. And through my coaching experiences, I've been able to be in several different districts throughout the state. And then also been able to go into administration, where a little bit later on in my career, I was able to pick up my doctorate degree from the University of Alabama. Was in Shelby County for 10 years, and at that time became assistant principal at Calera High School, and then rolled into principalship at Vincent Middle High School, which is on the Pell City side of Shelby County. It's a small 2A school that's 6 through 12. And was there for 6 years, and then had the opportunity to come into Alexander City Schools, where I'm now currently the career tech director, and have been in that role this last 2 years and currently still in that role. So that's a little bit about my background and where I've come from. A lot of my personal experience, honestly, is driven from where I grew up, how I grew up, and the things that I do for children. Being an athletic coach, and then also a teacher, and then a mentor. I really feel like most of my lessons that I try to work with children on tend to deal with helping them become gritty, helping them to become perseverant, and also being able to see the resilience that they have in their own lives, that every single person and every single student has the chance to excel. We just have to give that opportunity, and educators, I feel like that is our role. I have 27 years of experience in education, but 25, currently about to begin my 25th year as in public education. I had 2 years at a private college. But with that, just being able to be in the different roles and around the different types of educators in the different school systems, I've been able to kind of morph a mentality that I feel like where the students have to be our first priority in every single region of every single group that we're responsible for. And I think that I bring a very down-to-earth and practical and realistic theory to that. And if you'll look at what I have in front of you there, I've kind of written a couple of things that I want to preface, just kind of show you one reason why I would like to be superintendent. You know, if you asked me a few years ago, you know, when I grew up, what I wanted to be, even a principal, no, I wanted to grow up and be a teacher. Did I want to grow up and be a career tech director? No, I wanted to grow up and be a teacher. And it's the same for the superintendent role. So it's kind of evolved over time with my career. But because of the things that I've been able to do in the last probably 10 years and really digging into what community and stakeholders and parents can do for schools, I have found that it is interesting to see when we all pull together as one team what we can do. And so I jotted down a couple of things I learned when I was a principal. We were in a small area that actually had 3 towns in the area, and they pulled together the mayors, and we started what was called a 3 mayoral campaign, which was a team, I guess, bonding between the 3 cities for the school. And we did that for an athletic facility we needed to purchase for. It was a weight program that all of our female and male athletes needed at the school at the time, and there just wasn't funding otherwise. And so over about 2 years, we met with 3 different city councils and was able to pull together a proclamation to be able to get some earmarked funds for the next 10 years to be able to go toward that building project, to build the project ahead of time, had our Board of Education, that was someone who was behind us on that, and then also be able to continue to let those students start using that now while they continue paying that actual facility off. And so that was a huge step for that community to be able to, for the first time, not be a divided community and pull together for the 3. So that was one thing that when I first found my love for being able to pull community together for students, it happened then. And then being in this career tech director role has been interesting because I am not from the system that I'm at currently, but I've been able to build some partnerships already through our chamber and also through the local hospital. We have been able to build some programs for our students that are what we call our Success Phase 1 and 2 students, who are some of our students that may not be able to be on time for graduation, but need an opportunity to recover credit recovery and also become workforce ready. And so we have been able to build not just apprenticeships, which we are doing in that particular city, but also being able to build a program where those students can see that they can build skills while they are also catching up on their credit so that they've got some hope for their future. And so that's been kind of a neat thing to see that city come together. You know, I found that it is very interesting to see when you have a plan and a goal that most of the time the adults in the area will do what they can for youth. It can't be something that is just an idea. It actually has to be something that is implemented to fruition. And being able to see that is just inspiring when you get in a community that will back up those students at those schools. And so this is just a few other things there. Pathway learning, that is kind of my philosophy I've built in the past year in the school system I am because of being a career tech director. With that, I have the opportunity to pull together all the different avenues of education for one thing, and that is to build pre-K through 12 pathway learning, which is every single component of learning is important for the student. And so we've been able to get our chamber on board with that idea and do some promotional activities with it that pulls together all of our teachers. And so we're really seeing some cool teamwork opportunities for those kids. And the LEAP program is something that I've actually worked with CAC and Alex City, where I'm working now currently. President Lynn and I have worked together along with my superintendent, and we have been able to implement. I can't take credit for the LEAP program, but I can because it was actually developed before I was there. But I have stepped in to kind of implement it. And so it's a really neat opportunity for students that are in 9th grade to begin dual enrollment classes and be able to finish with an associate's degree probably before they even graduate high school, honestly, with the timing of graduation times. So it's a really neat thing. We actually have currently 3 cohorts going. We started with, it'll be this upcoming junior class, and they're actually in summer school right now taking classes, and then the sophomore class, and then our freshman class coming in are taking orientation this summer, Orientation 101. And so I work with those parents, I work with the schools with that to make sure that the transition is going well for them, because there's a lot of anxiety that parents have whenever they're sending their student that is 14 to a college class. And so President Lynn and his staff, Ms. Intrican and Ms. Mitchell, have all worked with me in the past on things that we can be able to do to help the parents' communication with that also. We have what we call Parent Roundup, and that's a meeting we do one at the beginning of the semester and one at the end of the semester to just let all the parents of all the LEAP students come together and be able to just talk to each other, kind of like a support group, and learn, because it's definitely something that we're working, and it's not perfect at this time. So that's kind of a neat thing. So I guess I kind of come back to your question, the reason why I would like to be superintendent, because I think there's some really neat things that we can replicate in other areas. And I feel like that would be a amazing opportunity to be able to see something be replicated that I know can work for the students of Watauga County, and to be able to just pull together the different groups of people that love the kids here in the different areas, to be able to see what we can do to just continue moving forward.
Okay. Okay. Being a professional educator, you have experienced many highs and lows. What is your greatest professional disappointment, and what did you learn from that?
Oh, wow, okay. I think my greatest professional disappointment probably would be when I was a young, aspiring administrator, and I had the opportunity to interview for several positions. And I remember I tell my students this all the time, and I even said this yesterday to an aspiring teacher who is a graduate. I was told no 13 times before I was finally told yes to the principal at Calera High School to be an assistant principal. And so it was just I think the disappointment sometimes of where you build and you work and you know your capability, but finding the fit that is right for you and the fit that is right for the people at the time that are looking to fill the position is very important. And when that fit is there, then everything else kind of flows together. But you have to continue to persevere and believe and find your core beliefs and values in education. And I've evolved into that. I did not know that, and I'm still working on that. But I think as an educator that felt as if I was prepared and ready, there were several opportunities where I was told it wasn't quite the time yet. And I think that was probably my biggest disappointment, is getting those no's, but then turning and showing some resilience to be able to continue my pathway, because I believed what I felt was true for kids.
Okay.
All right, I've got the next two. What steps are important to take to ensure you aren't exposing the school district to special education liability?
I think that's very important. You know, I was thinking about that question and thinking about the best way to build a team, because I feel like a lot of times decision-making, especially in levels of leadership such as this in the system, is important to have a team mentality and not have anything that is definitely one person and one voice. And so I would build what would be called a liability team, and in that liability team, I would pull together my directors that are a part of each group. And I've looked at the directors that are currently in Watauga County, and that team would actually, if you look at the packet that I gave you, I would build it off the director of special education, who would be your primary contact for this particular incident. And then the director of personnel and director of student services and director of curriculum and instruction. And I feel like we need to meet on very frequently, probably monthly. And to be honest, the director of special education would be someone that would be able to debrief us on those things. So before that would even go to our legal team, I feel like we would need to make sure that the directors were all on one page, and make sure that then we are guiding our administrators and our special education teachers and even our parents, because a lot of time our community parents don't even know what all opportunities are out there. And so to be able to have that conversation with them, to show them that we are really all on one page for the student, is important. Then if there is something from that team that needs to go forward to our legal team, I feel like that would be the next step to get their advice. And then if there are any opportunities to be able to have negotiations, I feel like that's important. When I was a principal, I did have one OCR complaint that did get to the point to where it was being investigated by our legal team. And I was able to solve that issue through being able to pull the parent in and having a one-on-one conversation about some things that we could do to actually satisfy the situation. Because it was a situation where we did need to correct something at the local school. And because of that, we needed to do what was right for that child. And in that case, when I was able to speak with that parent, then we were able to actually get the OCR complaint pulled back, and they actually negated that. And so it was a situation where I feel like a lot of times conversations can prevent, but the conversations have to be educated, and through that it needs to be through a team conversation.
Many parents are concerned about safety in school, but safety has many implications, such as the safety of the physical plant, protection of the students from physical harm, security of the school facilities, and social and emotional safety and well-being of students. How would you work to operate a safe environment for our students?
One of the best things that I learned at the local school level is to build a relationship with my local police department and local EMTs and all our first responders. We had several incidents where we had to involve them. And so I think if we have communication lines opened up with parents, communication lines and partnerships opened up with our local facilities and the first responders to be able to say as a partnership there, then that is going to, number one, provide some presence that's going to help with security. Now, when you mention mental health, I'm very much a proponent for social and emotional learning, and had the opportunity to actually travel up to Nashville, where that is one of the places where it began, to Pearl-Cohn High School and see their social emotional learning model, and replicated some of those things at the local school that I was at. And then now at the system where as a district leader, I'm able to actually work on the MTSS, the multi-tier system of support model for us, and we're developing what's called Project Aware. And Project Aware, if you'll see there, it is going to be, actually I think it's on the first page, it is accessing wellness and resources to everyone. And we wrote this actually to become part of the Stronger Connection federal grant that is out there, because we wanted to provide the opportunity for students to not only get the MTSS model for instruction and gaps in academics, but also in mental health. And so we developed a model, we being the team that I was a part of, developed an MTSS model for mental health. And this is an ideal situation, and this actually is something that we would be able to use in our district if we were able to receive that grant. But if you can look, I have the model in the packet, and it will be past the first colored sheet, and it'll say Project Aware. But it's important to see that you have to implement proactive things for mental health, and students, whenever there's any safety issues that are involved at a local school level, a lot of times those things can be picked up if there's a relationship with the students, with administration, and with other support staff, and even with people that are at the district level. And so you can see we have built something there where we are planning on building in what we are calling wellness coaches, that actually will be implemented in a couple of schools. And through that, the teacher's wellness coach and school counselors would provide a tier 1 support for every student when they begin their school day. A lot of times that can deter discipline. We have found that most discipline occurs whenever it's the beginning of the day or at lunchtime. And so when that happens, and a lot of times those transitions are the times where we need someone with eyes to make sure things are okay for the students. Not to be someone who's a consequential type of person, but someone who is there as a guidance, or someone that's there to be a coach or a mentor for those kids. Because a lot of times if they feel protected or feel they have that person in their schools, then they can actually prevent and be proactive in some of the things that may occur later on. So I've seen a lot of diffusion occur if those people are the right folks in place. And so from there, if it does extend a little bit further, you see our school counselors are a part of that. I'm also the director of our school counselors in Alexander City, pre-K through 12. And so with that, we've worked with the ASCA model and pulled some of that data and been able to look to see what are the things that our students need to look at for mentoring and coaching. And from there, sometimes it may pull into the school counselor, making a referral to our school school-based mental health services, or also our behavior intervention specialists that we have at a couple of the schools. And then at that point, then you'll notice the line, some of it can go into special education services, which would be Tier 3 support, or some of it can pull into continuing not special education services that may be a behavioral IEP type of situation, but also something that may just be a mental health situation that needs to have services with someone that is a board certified professional. And at the top there, you see that's our mental health coordinator that we have in that particular system. So this is a model that's kind of something that can be replicated. It's particularly made for our particular situation, but it's not something that can't be rejuvenated in another situation. So I feel like if we have these things in place and we're preventative, then we have our partnerships with our local entities, and then we have communication with our stakeholders, then a lot of times, even if there is something that is going to occur, then we're prepared for that, and we're able to hopefully diffuse it from being anything that is tragic, which we have all seen constant situations where that could occur. And so that's kind of my mentality behind that school-based safety. I could give you the answers, of course, of what the state requires and the plans that are in place and the teams, but none of that really matters if it's just on paper. So we have to make sure that we have to not only put it on the paper, but also implement it for our parents and our students and our teachers and our administrators, because they also need to have that feeling too.
Okay.
Hi.
High performance by students and accountability are priorities for us. How would you assess the current student performance level in our school system? And how would you assess the effectiveness of teachers and programs? So students, teachers, and programs.
So, looking at student performance, of course, the report cards are very important. Not only do the report cards give us data, but it also tells our story. And sometimes that story may be something that we can change, and sometimes that story is something that we see we can continue to build on. So I would build a student performance team. And with that team, if you'll look at page 3, and this, of course, would be something that I would work to be able to hopefully pull into place to give recommendations to our board on any type of new programs or any type of new policies that we would like to put in place. But of course, I would pull my central office directors and their coordinators because of the way that I've seen the layout. I feel like the coordinators are going to be more firsthand, and then pull our principals and assistant principals in. They're a true representation of what their local schools have and see each day with their teacher and staff. From there, I would help develop a rubric with those people in mind to help put some information in it. Now, that rubric is going to have some things that I would definitely say would be a non-negotiable, and that's going to be the data that is on our report card. And I've already seen that the academic growth in this system is amazing at 100%. We would need to work on the achievement, and that's very common in all systems, honestly, that achievement is something that's an area that we would need to grow. With that also are some low-hanging fruit, which is the college and career readiness indicators. And if you look at now with the 8th graders that are coming up, becoming where they have to have a CRI in order to graduate, use your career tech. And that's where I stepped in, use our career tech and specific planning for each student. There is a very easy way for us to be able to pull that to nearly 100% with all populations of the school. I think that's very important for us to remember too, that all populations have that opportunity. And with that, you have apprenticeship opportunities that you can build. You have completer status that you can have with CTE classes, which is 3 in one particular area. You also have them earning credentials. And I know there are particular programs that the center works on here, and then also that other schools work on individually within their schools. There's partnerships you can do within the schools to be able to do those things that just take some planning to be able to do. And then from there, you can also pull your graduation rate up a little bit higher through some of the programs that may be credit recovery type, like the Student Success Phase 1 and 2. So those are things that we can adjust, and adjust fairly quickly. Chronic absenteeism and achievement are tough, and that's something that is going to have to be kind of more of a long-term idea. If you'll look at the very back couple of sheets, I have developed what I feel like would be, this is kind of my personal plan for a 5-year plan of trying to look at what I would do each year. And so for performance, there are some things you can do now that you can make an impact now, and then there's some things that may take a little bit longer. The last 2 pages, actually 3, in year 1, I would look to try to maintain that growth data because it's exactly where it needs to be. So that shows you how hard the teachers and staff and building principals and assistant principals are working, because if that was not where it is, that would show in that particular area. So the growth is already at a great point. Then I would progress community engagement more. I have been able to be a part of some of that with our family and community engagement coordinator, and I've learned a lot about family and community engagement in the last year. We've been able to have the opportunity to build a mobile classroom to be able to go into the communities and help them with things like registration, FAFSA, even kind of explaining to them what the report card scores, the ACAP, and things like that are for our families. We can have parent nights, but sometimes those parent nights are only attended by certain particular groups, and so we want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to attend, or make sure everybody has the opportunity to see us through something like that. And so we were able to build this machine. We're going to actually have this mobile classroom that we had a donation be able to come to be able to put that. Now, we went through the bid process, and that's been a little bit of a, but it is getting there. So we're hoping we'll be able to see that in the next couple of months. From there, I would like to progress our story, which would be what we as Otago County Schools would be able to present to everyone, because I think that's important to get everyone, the entire school system, around one team concept. So progress with that, progress with the performance data, particularly in year 1 on CRIs and graduation rate. I think that's something that we can do quickly. Evaluating the fiscal needs, and then evaluating operations. So you'll see in my list there's some things that are maintaining, some things of progressing each year, some things of evaluating, some things of building, and some things to reflect and celebrate. I had to teach myself to celebrate the people that work hard for me, and so that's something that I have intentionally tried to improve in all of my plans. And so if you look at this is kind of a 5-year plan of how we would take all of the performance data that is showing up on our report cards that we have currently, and then being able to see it grow over a period of time. Student performance also can have data that is coming in different areas, like the SIR reports, and that's going to be our disciplinary reports. Now, sometimes, being a former administrator, sometimes the disciplinary reports vary just on who the person is that the student is having the conflict with. Sometimes it varies with the administrators, and it varies with the system and what the policies are in place. And so it's very interesting to me that we report a disciplinary report to the state that varies versus each school system's policies. But with that, we can look at it and evaluate what are the needs. And that goes along with our ASCA counselors. That is something that our counselors that do use the American School Counseling Association requirements, they look at that and see, are there trends? And if there are trends, what are things we need to do for those trends? All of this data is important, but we can't forget the student. And at the long run, we can do long, big things, but I feel like if we're gonna make any impact in any of these plans and any of this paperwork, it's gonna be that each individual student is gonna have to have a voice. And that's hard, and it takes a lot of work, but it can happen. It just looks different for different systems according to the makeup and how their students and faculty and staff buy into the idea that that can occur. Because every student has the opportunity to excel. And so I feel like if we put the best things we can out there, then we've done our due diligence for the student to not only be successful while they're in school, but also once they graduate. Because then that turns into our workforce of the area. And working through workforce, that data is stating that our students are not prepared when it comes to soft skills. And they say, well, we would like everyone to teach the soft skills. And so from there, that data is showing us that we do want soft skills taught, but we also like to give our students credentials to be able to move into that. So no matter what their background, no matter what area that a student would like to find their niche, they deserve that. So our performance data will start to organically move if we start really investing into each student. And that is something that I feel like is very important.
What is your experience and opinion regarding the student-centered educational model? And how would you use data to guide your recommendations regarding student success?
Well, that's what my whole theory is as a person and as a leader, I've always said that every decision that someone in education has to do has to be around the students. It can't be around the adults, unfortunately. It has to be around the students. I think that becomes very hard at times, but if we can stay student-focused, then even if we disagree with the mindset that we are all looking out for what kids need. And I feel like with that, you're also getting your parents on board, your community on board, your business entities, your local churches. All of those things will pull together if they see, well, the actual feeling and the core value of Autauga County Schools is continuing to be that we want students first. And I feel like I have that same mentality. And so from there, I feel that the performance information will start to change, the cultural information will continue to move forward, and all of the things that we're seeing that you guys are already progressing in, is you're gonna see that there's going to be a team mentality. And so performance for the student focus, when I always said when I hired people, I had a couple of things that I asked for, and you would be fine for me. One was that you were coachable, you were visible, and you were student first. Those are the three things that were my non-negotiables. And I feel like as a leader, that's the way I move, and I feel like that's the way everyone in education should. And with that, that would be what I would probably use as the main core values of everything moving forward in Autauga County.
Thank you.
I have the next two questions. What involvement have you had in budget development and ongoing fiscal management? Please give concrete examples when possible concerning such areas as community involvement in the budget process, multi-year fiscal planning, and budget development.
Okay, probably learned a lot of this during Career Tech Director. I've worked, of course, at the local school level, and so you have your public and non-public funds, but it was a different world going into working with the federal funds at the Career Tech level. And so going into that, I worked hand in hand with our CFO, and even though my responsibilities was a smaller portion than, say, federal programs were, a lot of things were very much in line with the same type of regulations and things along that line. So I have put, if you will look at page 4, I kind of put down a couple of things that I have worked on budget-wise. Besides the local school budget, I've also worked with the local career tech teachers budget. I've also worked with the athletics and fine arts budget as part of our pathway learning. I've helped with those things. We have a junior ROTC program, which again pulls in the federal government, and so I've worked along lines on how that actually kind of plays out because it's a little bit different process. I've worked with special education funding as a principal, not so much as the career tech director, but then we also have implemented, with partnership with the director of special education, a workforce simulated workplace for a special education classroom. And so with that, we kind of combined some funds for those students and actually have been able to employ 2 of those full-time after graduation. And so we've been able to work with that. So she would use some funds and I would use some funds. So we worked some budgets. We got community feedback when it came to things that the community felt like they needed. I have a career tech advisory board. I would mirror that model when it comes to budgets at any other level because I feel like it's a very good model to be able to pull stakeholder input in. So before I would come to the board with what I would like to see as a budget, I would want to make sure that it was a true voice of not just what I would think needed to be spent or where it needed to be spent from each community and see what their voices would be. I've worked with Perkins Grant, budget management, and also implementation. I've worked with the State Department CTE operations and maintenance funds, also our local voc ed funds, where our system actually provides some things there. I have applied and implemented the AWSP grant, which is the Workforce Stabilization Grant for upskilling. We received $50,000 to help with professional development. So we were able to actually provide professional development for our teachers for free. Now, it did not pay for anything but the training, but through that, I worked with the city Career Counseling Center and Commerce in order to be able to provide that information. And so I'm the one who wrote the grant, but then also the one that's actually having to work with the teachers and get their information back to get the reimbursement because it's a reimbursement grant. We are working on the Stronger Connection grant, hopefully hearing some good news soon. There's equipment grant writing with CTE of the State Department we received last year. Also a improvement budget grant that we received last year. The Family and Community Engagement is a different type of fund. It actually was ESSER funds through our councilman. So our government entities in the area were able to pull their ESSER funds together. So it was more of a benefactor type of donation on our end, but not on their end. Theirs is more on the ESSER side. So we had to provide some documentation for them to be able to use that for what we would like to do in the system. And then finally, working on the Russell Medical Hospital Success Plan Phase 1 and 2, that is a private entity. And so getting feedback from them was important. So that's kind of some things that I've been able to do in the last 3 years, using different stakeholders and different mindsets. And it really kind of spans a wide umbrella there, but it really shows that there's opportunities for our students and families in the system in lots of different areas. So those actually touch different sections of students. And so being able to pull that together, working with my CFO on how to use the funding codes correctly and be able to do those things in the budget process is very important. And then also going through all of the things that I usually handle all the accounting side of the CTE purchases and everything dealing with those particular grants that are listed there.
Okay. If you are selected for superintendent of Watauga County, what strategies would you use to increase revenue based on sales and ad valorem tax increases?
I think before, and I've seen several systems work on these things. I think this is something that is a continual process. As someone that is new to the area, I feel like it would be something that would have to, again, build some buy-in. Not only buy-in to me, but buy-in to what we have for a vision. Once we were able to do the buy-in, then I would want to get the proper people involved in conversations, which would be my community involvement team, which I've listed at the bottom of that page. And these things have kind of organically happened for me in the past, but now that I see the impact it makes when it can happen, then you can get some things completed. Again, I feel like our voters would be on board with things if they knew exactly what it's going to go for. If we're asking for an across-the-line increase, that's one thing, and a lot of times people are not going to quite buy into that unless they know the exact plan. So it's going to be important to build the plan before we ask. I think that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of times we ask before we build the plan, and so when we do that, then we've got to build some trust, and we've got to see, because like I said before, I really feel at the core heart of everyone is our youth. No matter if people have children in school or not, I feel like they want to see what's best for our kids, and that winds up helping our entire community. And it helps retain people in our community, and it helps invest in our community. And so with that, we've got to make sure that we build a plan, but it can't be a one-person plan or even a 2 or 3. You see, this is kind of this would be a very evolved process. And so I feel like that is a strength that I have. I feel like I have a strength of pulling together and being a team builder, especially with groups that may not have always been teams. I've seen that through some past systems. I don't think it was anything I intentionally thought that I was very good at until I saw some results at the end of being what we can do for kids. So that's how I feel like we could develop some opportunities to be able to increase funding.
Thank you.
Dr. Edwards, I have the next two.
Okay,
Mine are a little more fun because they're a little more personal.
good.
So they took the heavy lifting. But, what did you coach, by the way? Basketball?
I did, well, I've coached everything.
Okay.
But I played basketball, but I've coached basketball, softball, cheerleading, tennis, and volleyball, and little boys basketball every now and then, so.
There you go. Very good. As we're looking for a new superintendent, tell us what are the top 3 strengths or attributes that you would bring to our district?
You know, I've written them down.
I saw that.
But I'll be honest with you, you know, just talking to you about it, everything that I do, I'm very driven. And so everything that I do, I'm going to do 100%. I just always have. And I am, because of that athletic background that I have, I'm very competitive. And so with that, if it's something that I'm going to do, I feel like we could be the best, then I'm going to do everything I can to be the best. And also with that, I feel like I've always wanted to leave somewhere in a place better than I found it to begin with. And my resume is interesting because I have been able to have the opportunity to build a lot. And so I enjoy that building process. The really neat thing is here, wouldn't have to build. There's a lot of it's just progressing forward. And so that's actually an amazing opportunity. But number one, I think that I'm just a hard worker. I'm not afraid to do anything anyone else wouldn't do. As an administrator, I have been where if we needed something for something, I just did it. I'm not one that's going to expect someone else to do it. If I can do it, I'm going to try to do it. And also, I'm very motivated to be a self-starter. So it's not that we wait and just maintain. I have total confidence in my ability to be an operational manager. I'm organized and I can do that, and I've done that for a long time. I think my visionary mentality to be innovative sometimes can get too far, but I surround myself with people that are detail people because I am not the detail person, I'm the visionary person. And so with that, I feel like we work hard and we can do these things, and sometimes it may sound a little odd to begin with, but the mindset can actually turn it into something that would be a really great opportunity for kids. So I know I wrote some technical things on the paper, but if you know me or if anyone would talk to you about me, they would tell you that I'm going to be someone that's going to work 100%.
Okay. This is probably my favorite question. In our community, we have 4 separate communities. You know, and they're totally separate. There's a lot of pride that comes out of each one of those. People are very proud to be where they're from.
Absolutely.
And I love that. I think that makes each one of them very unique, thus making our system very unique. Tell me, if you could, how would you unite that under a system, maybe of excellence even, for all of those communities while they still get to display their individuality?
You have to have voices from each one. And that has to be someone that is and has a chance to be with me. And then with that, me being able to portray that information to you all. It has to be something where I can sit down and call an advisory meeting from each of the individual areas and be able to say, we have a board, an advisory board for Autauga County that's not necessarily the Board of Education, but it's actually our advisory board that's gonna help us with some big decisions. Because at the end of the day, we have to build for the entire system. With that, that's gonna need help from each group. And so, one of the things I've done in the past is I've been able to pull mayors, I've been able to pull councilmen, stakeholders, someone, or several people from each community deserves to have a voice, to sit down with me periodically, for us to be able to just talk and have real open conversations. Not something that's scripted, not something that is meant to be very formal, just an informal opportunity for them to be able to sit down and have conversations and say what we feel like we are having some problems with. To do that builds trust. And once you build trust, then your story or our story becomes one whole story and not individual groups. So that is something I feel like is really the most appealing to me about this particular position, honestly, is because I would love to be able to have that opportunity to build that with all of the groups.
Yeah, it's a unique situation.
It is.
Dr. Evers, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So we've concluded all of our questions. We have a little bit of time, about, 10 minutes? If there's any board member that has any extra questions, now's your chance.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I just like to ask this. If you were to get this position, would you be willing to live in Autauga County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, I am in Talladega County. We live in, my family and I didn't tell you about my family. Let me tell you, I have a family. My husband and I have been married for 23 years. We have 4 children. One is 22, 19, just had one 16 2 days ago, and then a 13-year-old. And so we still have 2 in school. The other 2 are in college. And so, yes, and they have lived a coach's life, and so they understand what it's like to be able to go in and build into the community. I think that's something that's very important because there has to be buy-in to know that the community feels like their leadership is bought into what they are trying to sell, honestly, for the vision.
Okay, thank you.
Well, is there anything that you thought we would ask that we didn't, or anything that you would like for us to know about?
No, well, no, actually, you guys did a great job asking. I think, like I said, I think it's just a neat opportunity to be able to see what I have a very odd pathway that has led me to where I am, and lots of different connections and experiences that I feel like has given me an opportunity to look differently at things with the different systems, left every one of them in a positive way, and been able to build relationships. And I wouldn't change a thing, because each place I learned something different about students and communities, because there's so many different communities that are out there. So I feel like as a leader, I'm able to really relate to people on whatever background that they have, just because of some of the experiences that I've had. I've been able to talk to people. And so I'm hoping to be able to bring that to you guys for the future. But, you know, it's you're right at the cusp of something that is excellent. And that is really what intrigued me to even apply for the position. So I appreciate you all having me today.
Yes, thank
We
you.
think so too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.